Hey everyone, I hope your day is going well. After the disaster that was the Tide Bringer Kaito polls yesterday, just for the record, I posted this on a comment of mine on the video. I went to second pity with 0 Kaito. I then did the treasure summons for 50 shards. I got 1, so yay. I then had to do 5 more 5k pulls to get another one. And I was like, okay, I almost spent 150k for this guy. Let's stop. And I used about 30 or so tickets to get another one, and that got me EX plus 3 eventually. So that's how I got my EX plus 3 Kaito. I paid more for Kaito to EX plus 3 him than I did for Knights of Grandchild. Let that sink in. I paid like 200k lapis in total for 2 Knights of Grandchild cards, and I spent 150k for 1 EX plus 3 Tide Bringer Kaito. And I think the whole banner structure with these global exclusive units with the added item, that is fine, but the subsequent banner, the so-called quote-unquote premium banner, which has very few units on it, and thus very few chances of getting that said unit, is an absolute scam. I hate these banners, and if it wasn't for the cool global exclusive units, I would never pull on these. Like, for example, last week when we got... what was the name? The Final Fantasy 1 banner. I just did straight 5k. No, I did 1 lap because the banner was okay. I did 1 lap, yeah, the banner was okay. And that got me both units. The week beforehand with Mont, I just did the step up for the card and I got Mont. And I never touched that stupid other banner because that's a scam. I hate these banners with a passion. I really hope they get rid of it. But we're ranting for 2 minutes already. Let's get started with the review because Kaito is a very interesting unit. So, the overview. Base form, he's a supporter with LB Chain and has that pure liquid infusion, which is more a Peter than actually useful. While it boosts his modifier, right? That's all cool and all. But it also imbues the party with water. I don't know why they did this. I think they could have left out the bottom part, the water imbue, and put it somewhere else. There are plenty of abilities where they could have put it. But that last bit kind of ruins his kit for Dark Visions, especially when you don't want to use a water team. And that's... I really dislike it. There are many things in his kit that are super awesome. And then there's this... but it's doing too much, or it's doing too little. And you will see more examples of this in a minute or so. And one of it is pure liquid infusion. Super cool, but that imbue is bad, honest. And in Brave Shift, he's the full 90% breaker in Clash, less so a little bit in Dark Visions, and has a very good Clash of Wills only again, LB Chain, which chains in Extreme Nova frames, so your Esther has a cool partner. And I put in 2 example abilities this time because it's his Brave Shift gimmick. It's Unpredictable Tide and Undulating Waves, which is 1, a boss buff, stat buff so to say, timer reduction. And the cool thing about this is if the boss's buffs have 2 or 3 turns or less, for example, the buffs are immediately gone. Basically, it works as a perfect disc build, so to speak, but also if it's 5 turns, you can reduce this to 2 turns, which is super cool. It's a great mechanic. And the same applies to Undulating Waves, which extends your debuffs on the boss. However, it's just stat buffs and imperils. It would have been so cool if it also were breaks, for example, or weapon imperils. That'd be so amazing. Alas, it is not. Maybe the time will come at a later point. But yeah, you know what? Both of these abilities are Clash only. I have a screenshot at the end of the video that I'll show you where it proves that this cannot be used in trials, and I would assume it's also unavailable in Dark Visions. I can't test Dark Visions for obvious reasons right now, but it being unavailable in trials kind of spoils that it's probably also not available in Dark Visions. Now, the interesting part is, nowhere in the description, the data mine or anything does it say that this ability is meant to be Clash only. It's somewhere super hidden, and I'm really hoping that this is just a bug and that Gumi will fix it to make these abilities available everywhere, because it makes no sense for these abilities to be Clash only. They are not specified as Clash only abilities. Let's hope they fix it. I opened a ticket about this already, by the way, so let's... Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Alright, so let's check out the abilities, or more of the abilities. And he has a lot of abilities, but like 80% of the good abilities are Clash only. So we have Swelling Current, and there's also another current type, which is the other killer. So we have Demon Fairy Killer, 150%. We also have Dragon Machina Killer on another ability. I picked Swelling Current because it proves the point that I was making here, right? So for this clash in particular, Swelling Current is your Fairy Killer, and it's also the 55% race type mitigation for fairies. However, and this is where the but comes in, it is also the Water Amp. What is this Water Amp doing on this ability? It has no reason to be there. Why would they put this ability, or would they put the amp on this ability? For Clash, this means for me, for example, as you've probably seen in my video yesterday, I had to delay Swelling Current and thus had less typed mitigation. I did the Dragon Killer stuff and the Dragon Mitigation turn 1, but I had to delay Swelling Current because the stupid amp, if I used it on turn 1, would be gone on turn 5, and I can't afford to do that. So this is another case of why you do this. It's already bad enough that the imbue is on his Grandis, but this pretty much takes the cake of, but why? Why are you doing this to us? Why has the amp to be on a type mitigation and killer buff? A 7 turn cooldown which only lasts 5 turns. Who thought this was a good idea? It's not. And then there's Aqueous Infusion. That one, for example, is absolutely fine. And I wonder, why not make this all in one? Aqueous Infusion. Add element to self, add element to all the party members. 50% Water Amp for self, 45 for everybody else. But caster. Boom, you're done. It's pretty much the same as Frayevia's. On demand, every turn you can use this. Ice, Amp, Imbue, Imperil, and Field. Why can Fry have such a cool thing, but Kaito can't? Kaito gets absolutely shit on by this ability. Or by his, well, swell of abilities, because he has like 3 abilities for what Fry does in 1, which Fry can spam and Kaito can't. I don't understand this. The design philosophy behind this. It's like they wanted to be Kaito's kit to be a huge mess. And for Clash, what I do really like though, and those are some positive words, is Traditional Downpower, 200% killers, awesome stuff. It's not just 2 races, it's 4 Demon, Machina, Dragon, Fairy, which makes me believe maybe the next Clash boss is Demon Machina. Who knows? Because we don't have any Demon Machina boss coming up other than War Machine, which is Machina, but you can't use that against War Machine, so yeah. So that's all cool. Also, accuracy down all enemies, which is cool because Sky for the time being is just single target. So is Frayevia. So 50% accuracy down. That's cool. If it were ever necessary, because we only have single target bosses in Clash. The right hand side is Brave Shifted or more passive stuff. And Brave Shift stuff. So we have Deadly Stream and Natural Flux. Deadly Stream is your all weapon imperil 25%, which is very, very cool. And this is why I feel like Kaito, with all the flaws he has in his kit, is still a highly valuable unit in Clash. 90% defense break, and there is natural flux with lots of element imperils at 125. It's a 150 water imperil, which is super amazing. Again, Clash only. And a 90% spirit break. So that really is something else, isn't it? And yeah, then there is the other ability, the Torrential Bladestorm. He also has Torrential Devastation, which is exactly the same ability, so I don't know why he would have two of those. I guess for reasons. If you prefer the name or the naming Devastation, go for Devastation. If you prefer Bladestorm, well, go for Bladestorm. But what this does is, it's 4 individual parts. You can modify this up even further, and if you have a unit such as Roberta, this gets even better. So all in all, if you triple cast this, it's a 2580x modifier, which is pretty good, and we'll see this later in the DPS chart as well. Let's get to the limit burst portions. So the base limit burst, it's rather unimpressive. Remove all buffs from enemies, perfect dispel, decent, 25% katana imperil, same as Auron, a premium Auron and premium Sephiroth have. Nothing too fancy, but the cool thing about this is the damage portion, because Gumi kind of spoiled the deal with upcoming JP units, because many JP units have racial damage coming up. So Balthier, for example, has this. And that's the only example that I have right now. But yeah, so if you are facing a Machina boss, the ability deals 60x to that boss, and then also has a second portion which works every time. It's 100x with 50% defense ignore, so basically 200x modifier. In total, this would be 260x. Now Kaito has this modifier boost, 30x, so you add 90x to this, it's 350. Unless I'm 260, yeah. So that's 350x in total. Awesome stuff. However, and this is what you're probably asking yourself, what happens if I don't face a Machina boss? Well, in that case, the modifier portion of the first hit reduces to 1x, but you can still buff this up via Tyvis or his own modifier boost. So at the very worst, you will have a 291 modifier, which is nice. It's still less than most units these days, but it's nice. And then there's the Brave Shifted Limit Burst, which is a 30% Katana Imperial, so ideally for Dark Visions, for example, you do want to use the Brave Shifted LB first, so you have the higher Katana Imperial. It is also a 140% Water Imperial, which is a little bit lower than what he can do in Clash via his Morale unlocks at 150% Morale. But for Dark Visions or Trials, cool stuff, 140 Imperial, that's nice. And it also takes away from upcoming JP units that do the same, basically. And then there is Breaks. He has 88% breaks in Dark Visions or Trials, so to say, which is okay, I guess. It's nothing too fancy. We do have dedicated trash SLB breakers with 89% breaks, but I would suggest that Tide Bringer Kaito does a little bit more damage in these units. He also has attack and magic breaks at 90%, which I feel like are whatever, honestly. For the most part, 90% breaks with high passives in Clash, they don't do much. They are just okay to have, but you can make do with 85% breaks too. And then there is the morale scaling bit, which scales up to 310x, which sadly is a huge letdown. I would have liked if this was 500x, for example. This would bring him a lot closer to Sky. But at 310x, he's very far behind Sky, for example. So let's check the Trustmaster, Super Trustmaster, etc. Trustmaster Clothes. We are starting the trend a little bit sooner than we would be otherwise. So the trend that is coming up with upcoming DPS units from JP is a huge bulk. Bulk is going to be the trend. So Kaito takes the cake here, 2000 HP on his Trustmaster reward, 50 attack and 20 defense. What I really like is the water absorb on this ability. It's for Kaito only, but it's nice. And I personally am a fan of the 5 LB crystals per turn. We do have Luminous Cloves. If you missed it, Luminous Cloves is created, it's, I believe, 8 LB crystals per turn. So yeah, 5 LB crystals. It's good for units that want to fill LB gauge fast and have a base form, for example, where they are free to do whatever. Units such as Lara Croft come to mind. You could shift Esther and have her regenerate 5 LB crystals. Angela, for example, is also a good target for this. So there are plenty of units who could use this in their off forms, where they just prepare for burst again, for example. So I like this. The Super Trustmaster is your standard 220 attack variant of a weapon to 1.25x variance to 1.75. It has 300% HP, but it's only tied to Kaito. I would have liked if this was for everybody, but I guess. It also has 500 static attack just for Kaito, which is standard. And then there's a 50% Demon Fairy Killer. Yeah, it's Fairy Killer, okay. It's decent. I like the STMR, it's pretty good. It's one of the best katanas in the game, probably even the best, one could say, especially due to the high attack and the killer types. So yeah, I like the katana, it's very good. And then there is the Vision card, which is exceptionally good for a non-premium card. It's 115 base attack, 30% fire wind resistance, which is meh. But if the wearer wears a katana, it's 70% attack. And FFBE units gain 500 static attack. So if you missed out on Knights of Grandshield, for example, and don't have that super strong card. Knights of Grandshield card is the only card that really surpasses this, by the way. But if you don't have Knights of Grandshield card, this is your second chance. It boosts up Sky tremendously. Now it kinda locks Sky to using a katana, which I honestly don't know if she can wear innately. I think it's just swords, great swords, spears. Maybe she can actually wear katanas, I'm not quite sure. I should have checked, but well. But it's still good for Sky. It's pretty much superb for any FFBE physical attacker. So it's a, I would call this quote-unquote budget version, even though Kaito isn't technically budget, but it's a very good secondary option. So all in all, I feel like the whole slew of Trustmaster, Super Trustmaster, and Vision card is very good on Kaito. I like it all. So let's get to the nitty-gritty stuff, the damage calculation. Pause the video if you want to read this through on your own accord, on your own pace. Let's move to the build. So this is the build I came up with. It's vetted against Beast and Aquatic. Please keep in mind, instead of the Ruler Celestite clothes, I had the Ruler's clothes for Dark Visions. I am just too lazy to Clash and Dark Visions, sorry. I was just too lazy to change this to the other one. It cost a faceted orb and I don't want to deal with this. So Kaito is calculated with the chain cap, the Magister's clothes instead. Also, I don't have Flammy STMR, so I had to make do with Beast Killer Plus. But for this build, Flammy STMR is kind of needed, such that he caps attack percentage. And then there is the Knights of Grandshield card, which you should be using on him in a best case scenario. And I'm also using Koku Ryu. And these are the results. So as you can see, the Torrential Bladestorm / Devastation build, technically speaking, comes out on top. Kaito that way is a little bit stronger than Lara Croft, but very, very marginally so. It's just a 20 million increase over Lara Croft, or let's put it in percentages because I know you guys like that more. So it's a 1.5% increase over Lara Croft if you are willing to go all the way to boost his modifiers, which takes a long time. It's a lot of micromanagement. But if you do that, your Kaito will outperform Lara Croft. Now, while Lara Croft's modifier is higher, there's almost a 2000 attack difference, and that's all what it does. Furthermore, in Clash of Worlds, I do not account for Kaito having a 150 water imperil on the boss, and yeah, and that one really makes the difference. Now, Lara is also calculated with 130 imperil in mind, but 135 imperil from Lara Croft versus a 150 imperil from Kaito. It's very easy to see that Kaito is going to outperform Lara in real usage by an even higher amount. But with the model assumptions, Kaito is already ahead of Lara, and that is pretty good. He has 140 on his LB. I should have fixed this to 150. My bad, it's just a typo, but yeah. In non-clash, he sadly falls apart rather quickly, as you can see. He has a 350 LB modifier against machines, which is good. I mean, he's technically very high up, right? Because Sky is at the very top of my sheet. So it isn't super bad. But then again, if you check the damage versus Knights of Grandchild, for example, it's just 65% of Knights of Grandchild in a mech scenario, or 54% of Knights of Grandchild if he's not facing a Machina boss. And that really speaks to volume, right? So the difference between super strong premium units plus Kane and the non-premium units is really staggering these days. So Esther, Knights of Grandchild, those are both units that are way too high in damage compared to everything else we have right now in the game. Well, one could add Dragoon Kane to this equation. It's also a little bit too high for everybody else. But I guess Mage Variance is around the corner and it will shake things up. Units such as Magus Angela, Dankrain, especially Roberta and Ignitos as a mage will move up a lot in the damage chart. And spoiler, Angela will be sitting at the throne for quite a while. She will be at 3.5 billion on my chart, so that's crazy. It's more than 50% higher than Sky. It's absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, let's talk about the verdict. So for Clash of Worlds, I would rate Kaito at a 9 out of 10. For Dark Visions, due to all the limitations and shortcomings, he's only a 7 out of 10. So the good things about Kaito, he has an all weapon imperil, he has a 140 water imperil for everything, 150 for Clash. I didn't include this here on purpose because it would then blow up the slide. But keep in mind it's 150 imperil in Clash. He's got a very, very good vision card, amazing support for both Clash and Dark Visions. The kit design, even though it has huge flaws, is very strong in Clash of Worlds with full 90% breaks. And he also has good damage in Clash, which we don't get too often these days. The last one was Roberta, so here we are, yet again a good unit with good damage in Clash. The bad things though, that he requires way too much micromanagement for high DPS, and I also feel like that the removal of the good things, the actually good things, is going to be an issue in Dark Visions. And what do I mean by micromanagement? Like, the killers are spread out over 2 abilities that do other important things such as amps. Then you have the imbue on his Magnus that also boosts his own damage, but it shouldn't imbue the party at the same time. This alone warrants the -1, to be honest. Then reaching the max modifier on his chain takes way too much time. You also have to do other things, which then again reduces the amount of modifier boosting you can do. And that directly translates to him being actually a decent morale battery in theory, but he is way too busy most of the time buffing the party. So he can't work as a morale battery. And that's kind of sad face. Then the 90% defense and spirit breaks are only for Clash. But what really grinds my gears, and here's the screenshot of it, the debuff extension and buff reduction is Clash only. This is the Behemoth Trial, Heavenly something something, and as you can see, both Unpredictable Tide and Undulating Waves are unavailable. That's really unfortunate, and yeah, that alone warrants a -1 for Dark Visions, because I'm fairly certain it won't work in Dark Visions. And this is how I got to the 7 out of 10 in Dark Visions. It's the same rating Freyevia got, and if we go by that, maybe Kaito will be in the next top 10 team in Dark Visions, because a 7 out of 10, believe it or not, there is, because the ratings, they don't tell you if a unit is amazing in terms of DPS, but the whole kit. So a 9 out of 10 has high usage amongst all content, basically. But I specified this for Clash, so Kaito will be used very, very often in all kind of scenarios for Clash. Whereas a 1 out of 10, for example, would be a super niche case. Summer Sniper Physalis. You would only ever bring her to water weak fights. And nothing else. And that's why she's a 1 out of 10. She's good, her damage is decent with the variance update. But her being absolutely hard waterlocked, can't use her anywhere else other than water stages. And that's why she's a 1 out of 10. And the 7 out of 10, pretty much for Dark Visions and Trials, suggests that he will have decent use for all that he does, but there are better options out there. That's how you are supposed to read this. So I still think Kaito is a great unit. In fact, I think Kaito is the perfect unit for beginners. Especially when you're just starting, you want to get your feet into not Dark Visions, Clash of Worlds. Kaito does it all. Kaito has 90% breaks, he has a super high imperil, 150%, he has all weapon imperils. Please, if you are a beginner, don't get swayed by anything else, don't get swayed by Knights of Grandchild, don't get swayed by Mont or the Final Fantasy 1 units, pull for Kaito. Do yourself that favor, pull for Kaito, you will thank me later when you use him every time because of his 90% defense and spirit breaks. He's that good. Just do it. Trust me. And if you also want to have a good breaker for Dark Visions, 88% breaks, believe it or not, they are sufficient. Yes, 90% breaks on bosses without any passives are still a lot better, but unless you have all the meta units, you won't be competing for top 100 anyway. And 88% breaks will allow you to finish out most, if not all, bosses in Dark Visions anyway. As for Trials, the upcoming Trials, War Machine and Belphegor and whatever their names are, those may be out of reach for beginners, those are even out of range for some whales, what I've been told, but maybe with the delays and all that, maybe we'll have an easier time defeating Warmech and all the other upcoming Trials, we'll see. But still, Kaito, an all-around, very, very versatile unit with good selection of AoE killer buffs, some of which are rather rare these days, and he also deals a decent amount of damage and has a huge range of party support. So he is a unit with lots of roll compression, and especially beginners should be pulling. This is your Kryla moment, so to speak. Get him. Trust me, you will be happy about this. Like I said about Roberta was that other case where I told people specifically to pull for her because she's that good. Kaito, almost the same value as Roberta, just a little bit weaker because his abilities are spread out so much. Or the good things about his abilities are spread out so much. And that's it. Thank you all for watching. Maybe I'll do another Clash video, but probably not. I am way too busy with my thesis these days. So I think this is it for the time being. Maybe the next video will be Clash again, so I'll take a break for a month or so until anniversary. I don't know yet. Nothing's set in stone. Depends on how far along I get with my thesis in the next days and weeks. But yeah, we'll see each other when the time comes. Thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful rest of the Friday evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you're from. Goodbye.